Good morning. Good morning to all our friends at Beth-El and in the community. I'm Rabbi Dennis of Congregation Beth-El and look forward to a short conversation with you this morning. I'd like to thank everybody who participated in our virtual cocktail Judaism this past Monday evening with Dr. Aaron Carroll. It was an informative and enlightening conversation with Dr. Carroll, and I'd like to thank him once again and all of you who participated in it. Our next cocktail Judaism virtual experience will be on April 6th. That's Monday, April 6th at 7:30 p.m. And we're going to talk about Passover, finding freedom. We're going to talk about ways that you can make your Passover experience significant, meaningful, enjoyable at home with your immediate participants. So please tune in to that on April 6th, Monday evening at 7:30 p.m. This morning, I'd like to talk a little bit about our current experience. And it occurred to me that we've been talking a lot about the disease itself and ways of dealing with it medically and socially. So I decided to explore the concept of quarantine. And I looked at the sources of quarantine. I knew from my Spanish, the word is cuarentena, that the word quarantine goes back to the word for 40. And in fact, I discovered that the term was first used in Venice in the 14th century. And the expression cuarenta, or 40, was the amount of days of isolation during which ships that were coming to the port of Venice and were suspected of bringing any type of infection or diseases were held outside of the port until they could be safely admitted. Now, I said 40, well, that's a significant number in the Jewish tradition, and started thinking all the way back to the biblical narratives. Remember that Noah was in the ark for 40 days and 40 nights with his family. Moses was isolated for 40 days atop Mount Sinai before bringing the Torah down to the people of Israel. The Israelites wandered for 40 years in the desert before arriving at the promised land. And often the biblical cycle of rule for kings is listed as 40. 40 seems to be in the Bible a number of transition, of completion. So the expression quarantine goes back to that number 40. We certainly hope that it won't be that long for us to overcome the present situation. And the term quarantine, of course, is used now for any period of separation or isolation. Interestingly, if you look at the Pirkei Avot, the teachings of the ancient rabbis, the age of 40, and I know that we have more people under that than over that, but wherever you are in the scale, the age of 40 is listed at the age of Binah, the age of understanding. So perhaps a quarantine is a time for us as individuals and as a society to take pause, to take counsel, to evaluate, and then, when medically advisable, to move forward judiciously to renew social connections. So as we transition during this period of quarantine, let us look forward to what is possible, to what is doable. Right behind me, you will see a painting by an Indiana artist who is a friend of Sandy's and mine. His name is Phil O'Malley. And when we moved into our new home, we asked Phil to do something evocative of the concept of connections. And this is what Phil prepared for us. It is overlapping circles indicating connections. The inspiration came from Sandy's book of the story of And in fact, from a distance, you can see a narrative, a script under the overlapping circles that tells the story of And throughout the body of the painting, there are words in different languages that spell and or other terms of connectivity. So at this time, when we have the opportunity of being in isolation, social distancing, let's think of how we are going to renew those connections for the future. I know that we try to sometimes idealize these days as, quiet time for doing unfinished chores, trying new recipes and Zooming and Skyping and FaceTiming. We complain a little bit about cabin fever. But there are some people for whom it's much more complex, and I am thinking of those people. I am thinking about people who have more serious issues to consider at this time, often illnesses, physical and emotional. There are familial problems, economic concerns, and of course, feelings of loneliness. So while we make the best of the present time, let us remember that there are other people in our congregation and in the community and in our city that are having it a little bit more difficult than some of us are. We are here as a congregation to be part of that interconnection symbolized by the painting by Phil O'Malley that you see behind me. I recently saw a very interesting short essay by Nathan Sharansky, the prisoner of conscience, who in many ways was the model of the Jews trying to leave the Soviet Union. Natan Sharansky endured solitary confinement for several years, and he has written a short essay giving us some tips of what to do during such periods. The first thing that he said is, remind yourself that you're part of a larger, huge community and global engagement, that you are not in this alone. At the same time, try to build plans which fully depend on you for the time of separation and for the future. Never give up your sense of humor, Sharansky would say, and don't give up on your hobbies. And if you don't have a hobby, try to find something that will keep you engaged. And above all, feel your connection. Feel that you are not alone. In this week's Torah portion, which Rabbi Jenny will be discussing on Saturday morning, we talk about sacrifices and the ways in which we bring ourselves closer to God, or the ways in which our ancestors felt they could bring themselves closer to God. And what I find particularly interesting is the Haftarah for this week's reading. It comes from the prophet Isaiah, and there Isaiah says at a difficult time to Israel, Al Tira Avdi Yaakov, do not be afraid, my servant Jacob. I do not, as all of you know, look at the Bible as a book of fulfillment, prophecy, but I do look at it as a book of historic insight and wisdom. And the concerns that many of us are dealing with today have been dealt by our people and by other peoples, individuals and collectives, and we have overcome. So that is the message that I bring you. Again, quoting Isaiah, one of my favorite books, Shalom, Shalom, la rachok v'la peace, peace unto those who are far and those who are near. Stay connected. We look forward to being together with you on a variety of programs and opportunities during the weeks ahead as you take care of your own needs and concerns and look after your spouses and friends and family with whom you are at home. Think also of other people. Do what you can to perform a mitzvah, send a contribution to food pantries, and think of ways in which you can engage, support, and help to move this process so that we can all come out of the spirit of quarantine as soon as possible. As soon as possible. We're thinking of you and look forward to future opportunities of talking. Thank you. Shalom, shalom, la rachok v'la karov. Peace, peace to those who are far and to those who are near. Bye. Sandy will disconnect me here because I don't know how to do these things.
I don't either.